be American as Disneyland or the Washington White House, but super speedway racing NASCAR style has been part of the Australian motorsport scene for the past 5 years. V8 Winston Cup lookalikes are built strictly to the international NASCAR formula, still the most successful horsepower category on the planet today. Australia has produced its own V8 alternative to the American class. AUSCAR racing is all about the local Ford and Holden product head-to-head at 250 kilometres an hour. Naturally, the fans love it. Today, 7 Sport greets you from Melbourne's Calder Thunderdome as the great V8s prepare to do battle in round 4 of the AUSCAR and NASCAR Nationals. So buckle up for the ride of your life. Well, good afternoon, Australia. I'm Mike Raymond. Welcome to a rather wet and dismal Calder Park Raceway here in Melbourne. 4th round of the NASCAR and AUSCAR Nationals scheduled for completion here this afternoon. But, Neil Crompton, we have a problem with the weather.
It's pretty ordinary looking out there at the moment, Mike. Very wet and disappointing for all the guys. A lot of people looking forward to a big battle this weekend with the 4th round and tight point situation for both AUSCAR and NASCAR. The crowd out there at the moment getting very wet. The brollies are up and the weather doesn't show any sign of improving out towards the west, so the boys are kicking the footy and generally having a good time. We did see AUSCAR qualifying interrupted by rain. Brad Jones holding his customary position with a margin of 0.2 of a second over Marshall Brewer. But very disappointing for Steve Harrington. His car wasn't running. He didn't get out and qualify. But if the weather stays like it is and they cancel the race, then it's probably a reprieve for him and it keeps his points battle alive. So it's been good for him.
Well, one guy who's still sitting in his car and hopeful of going racing this afternoon is the current AUSCAR champ, and that's Brad Jones. At least he's out of the bad weather for a moment. Andy Raymond is down there with him.
Thanks very much, Mike. And on pole position, the current leader after 3 rounds of the AUSCAR Series, Brad Jones. Brad, congratulations.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks very much.
Mate, it must be a big bonus. Leader after 3 rounds, as I said, and you really have got the wood on them starting from pole.
Well, it's this morning in the practice session, it was intermittent rain, so we were sitting second for most of the session, and I was a little worried that's where we might start. And it cleared up for the last 4 or 5 minutes of practice, and I managed to knock out a time to get on the front. But, you know, the weather's good and bad, so it'll be a critical race. It'll be a hard one to work out a pace.
Well, at least he's in the right spot in the car ready to go, but I think it's going to be quite a while before we see them out on the racetrack.
I can't see any great sign of improvement out there at the moment, but you'd want to be Brad Jones. You're in the hot spot if the weather does improve.
Well, we're going to show you some of the highlights of a rather extraordinary race, the Goodyear AUSCAR 150 from Calder Park Thunderdome back in December. Brad Jones was on pole, but we won't tell you who won. And I think we're just about set for a start now as the pace car, the Ford pace car, comes into the pit lane. And a top field of 33 starters about to take the green flag now in the Goodyear AUSCAR 150 from Calder Park Thunderdome. And here they are coming in for the start with Brad Jones on the inside. Hats in the air from the race fans as they go storming down into turn number 1. Mark Seaton on the outside, tries to stay there, may get the lead. In fact, he does, halfway through the turn. Jones goes fighting back on the inside to retake the lead on the exit to the second turn. Marshall J. Brewer bounds up immediately into 3rd place. Grant Munday out very, very smartly indeed, and he will take 4th, and they're up now into turn number 3.
Gee, it's a good car, this Falcon. It's a good package. You got pole position here in round 1. It's looking very strong here in round 2. Big, heavy car, but a much bigger engine than the Commodores, and that power is something Mark Seaton uses to the most advantage, particularly in qualifying, and looking very strong here in the opening laps.
Look at this for the draft as they come into turn number 1. Brad Jones. Harrington starting out of position number 16, now up to 11. They work the back straight. Bradley Jones and the Castrol Commodore right behind him, Mark Seaton in the Goodyear Falcon, and then of course Marshall Brewer in the fast track Commodore. They are bumper to bumper coming off turn number 4.
You've been missing the traditional Holden Ford battles. Well, here is where it's at. Ford running second there between a Commodore sandwich. Great stuff. All V8 engine cars, about 360 horsepower. They're only about 2 or 3 seconds slower than the NASCARs. And let's take race cam looking back out of Brad Jones' car. And Mark Seaton tucks into the draft as they go down the back straight. Terrific shots in the opening laps of this race.
Jones doing it ever so right at the moment. He's already coming up to put a lap on a slower car, car number 34. Problems early in the race, and he will have the pack attacking the tail of the Commodore as they make their way on the back straight. Yes, we've got 2 around sideways in the middle of the bottom turn. The red Commodore. Can he hold it on the brakes? The yellow flag will come out marginally.
Well, it may not yet because the track's still clear. It depends. Bruce Williams was all out of shape and he recovered it, got down on the grass but got back under control.
That's Rodney Jane sitting there in car 7, the older Commodore. He had to lose as well, but it looks like Williams and Jane are both moving again.
Let's look at Mark Seaton from Goodyear Race Cam. Brad Jones the leader, Seaton second, Marshall Brewer third. Brewer made a lot of ground in the last couple of laps and got into a position to challenge Seaton, but it's just settled down a little bit again at the moment. The gaps remain the same as car number 6 pulls into the pit area, and that's George Casamarte in the XF Falcon.
Gee, it's tight stuff. The first 15 cars were covered by less than a second in qualifying. 2 Fords and 8 Commodores in the top 10.
John Sorzak and the boys would be delighted with the way the GP50 machine is going here today. And again, look at Marshall Brewer down on the inside. Can he get away from Mark Seaton?
Only about 100 metres behind this leading trio. Steve Harrington still moving up to the field, up to 6th. So he's really on a charge.
Now, Brewer down the inside of Seaton. See whether Seaton can pull him back as they go onto the back straight. Car seems to have a little more grunt, but I don't think is handling as well as the Brewer number 69 car. He gets serious about going for the lead and zaps straight down on the inside of the Castrol Commodore.
Went very deep under brakes as we take the inside of Brad Jones' Castrol Commodore, and Marshall's made a bit of a break on him coming onto the main straight there. There was an excellent move under brakes from Brewer.
Seaton's going to go through on Jones as well, I think, down into turn 1. Pulls low and goes through. Wonder whether Jones has a problem.
There's car 16, Steve Harrington, the winner of round 1. I think he's up to 4th position now. Disposed of Grant Monday. So in these opening laps, he's made an enormous move up through the field from 16th.
Yes, he's probably been working the tyres fairly hard. That's a good charge, 16 to 4th. In the opening few circuits of this Goodyear Classic.
Brewer's got an unbelievable gap going here. I'll just get an accurate split. And he's 1.8 seconds clear of Mark Seaton now, who's about 1.5 car lengths clear of Bradley. His car still seems to be travelling at the same kind of speed. We've lost a car exiting turn 2. It's car number 7.
Greg Hoog straight.
He is now.
Kept the engine going and looks like he's going to get back into the action.
Once again, we don't need a yellow for that situation, which is good. The racing continues. The Jones car had a noise in this morning's warm-up. Crew were a little bit concerned about. It's a great view of Harrington's car as he makes a run down the inside, heading towards turn number 1. Can he brake a little later and get underneath? He's got the car alongside there, side by side. And he's pulled the manoeuvre off. The Bob Jane T-Mart's entry of Steve Harrington, car 16. So Jones now back to 4th. That'll put a frown on the face of the reigning AUSCAR champ.
That's our bumper cam view. Gives you an idea of the very, very steep banking in the turns here at Calder Park Thunderdome.
And a few of the lumps and bumps. See that Harrington's car's getting in a little quicker and deeper at the end of these straights. And you can see by this shot that a lot of the success that comes to the regular front runners in this class here revolves around dealing with the traffic. And I think Harrington's made a clear pass now on Seaton. So it's Harrington second. That's Seaton's Falcon there in 3rd, Jones 4th. And he's getting into a position now to maybe challenge the Ford man and take away 3rd place. Lining up for a run into turn 3. Out breaks him down the inside. And it's now Commodore 1, 2 and 3.
It really is a terrific shot of AUSCAR racing at its best. You can see certainly how hard these cars are working.
Extra weight of the Falcon means that it's probably a little bit harder on its tyres than the Commodore.
One of the main concerns in the Seaton camp is particularly the left front tyre. The car's very quick, but with all that weight hanging over the front axle, after a few laps are down in the race, it starts to be pretty punishing on that left front rubber.
If anything, Seaton and his crew, and indeed many of the other competitors, will be actually hoping for a couple of yellow flag incidents to give their tyres a breather and re-establish some of the battles that they were having. Well, Jones seems to be running along with Harrington, but there's no stopping Marshall Brewer. He's got a gap now of in excess of 3 seconds. hasn't put a foot wrong. Just blazing away up the back straight now, well clear of the pack.
These guys at the front, particularly Brewer, setting a tremendous pace. Oh, trouble up here in the top turn. Been a connection with a few of them. They've all gone for the brakes to try and find their way through there.
Well, this will definitely prompt a yellow, no question.
Car number 20 sits up against the concrete wall. Let's take a look at that on our action replay. It really was a touch of helter-skelter at the top part of the circuit. Two cars slamming into the wall, a couple innocently involved. One dives from the top to the bottom. Bits and pieces of car being picked up by the field. It's quite lucky. In fact, there weren't any other drivers involved in that accident.
We take Goodyear race cam, and it's Brad Jones at the helm. Bradley, dare I say, what's it like out there?
The pace is a cracker at the moment, to tell you the truth. They're certainly going quite hard. I've decided that my plan of attack is to sit back a little and watch the action. I've got a noisy gearbox or something which is worrying me because it's slowly getting a little worse. So, you know, I'm just doing the best I can with what I've got, I guess.
Have you got a gearbox temperature problem, or is it just the noise?
Well, it's just the noise at the moment. I'm not positive it's coming out of the gearbox. There's a noise in the car when you get off the throttle. So I'm just, you know, trying to be quite as gentle with the car as I can.
Coming in for the start, he sits on the high side of the circuit and gets a brilliant start. Away very quickly indeed. Steve Harrington goes with him. Bradley Jones now swings to the outside. Terry Waihuna's up very quickly as well as they come thundering down now into turn number 1. Brewer, the race leader. Jones on the outside of Harrington. They're side by side.
What was interesting, Mike, just prior to that yellow flag incident, Waihuna had actually put another place on Seaton, who seems to be having a little bit of trouble just keeping this pace up at the moment. But already at the end of this first lap and the resumption of play, Brewer just blasts off into the distance. He's got great car speed today. Looking very impressive. Harrington second, Jones third, Waihuna fourth, and a fairly large gap back to Mark Seaton. And Kenny Anson is sixth, car 4. You see Steve Harrington looking high and low for a place to get by Marshall Brewer. Couldn't find it, and in this almost second running of the event, these three guys are a lot closer than they were in the early laps. Harrington's got a lot of racing experience in Group A touring cars, also in single-seaters. He spent some time in Europe doing Formula 3. Now likes his oval track racing. Jones down the inside now, looking for second.
He'll get it. We go back inside the cockpit with Brad. There's Steve Harrington on the outside in the Bob Jane T-Mart 16 car. It's got some grunt as it gets off the turn, though. Bradley's got him pocketed here, making him do it the hard way, work those tyres out and around the outside. Harrington sitting there quite composed. How close are they? Flat strap here at Calder Park Thunderdome.
Fierce battle. This is also a championship battle too. Harrington leads Jones in the championship by 5 points by way of his win in the opening round. This is a real grudge match.
Well, he gets the inside advantage that time, Brad Jones. That shoots him back up into second spot behind Marshall Brewer. But I have a feeling the challenge from Steve Harrington is far from over.
I just wonder whether Marshall might be using more of his rubber to get this speed up at the moment. He's actually back in 14th in the championship after one race back in October. So as Mark pointed out, it's quite right to focus to some extent on these two guys in terms of the championship battle. And now Bradley with a little margin over Harrington. Incidentally, car 88, Owen Davies, was black flag. It was a stop-go penalty. He went to the pits and has rejoined once again.
Well, I thought Brewer may have finished higher up in the points, and so did he at the October race. But he has this Calder Park jinx, and it usually strikes about 3 out from the finish, and that's exactly what happened. When someone spun and got clouted by Marshall, that accounted for any haul of points he had planned on the day.
He's got a great-looking car, and it's beautifully prepared, and it seems to be working well today. Coming up onto the back of car number 6, the Falcon that made that trip to the pits earlier. It's also smoking a little bit at the moment. I hope it's not dropping any oil.
Well, car 6 has just been black flagged, so he's
dropping oil.
He's down on the pit apron. He's coming back into the pits. All sorts of problems for George today.
Order is still Marshall Brewer, Leading from Brad Jones, Steve Harrington, Terry Wyhoon, Kenai Anson and Mark Seaton.
Marshall got a terrible run out of that corner coming up behind car 40. Brad, the opportunist, saw it, and he's picked up first place very easily down the main straight.
Tell you what, our race cam team, led by Mark Woodley, Charlie Busby and John Joyce, are busy today monitoring the activity out here on the racetrack. There's plenty of it up in front, and we're riding with the race leader.
The only way you can get closer to the action than this is actually being in the car driving it. They are fabulous pictures, and the effects of the V8 engines revving around here is tremendous stuff.
Or a passenger sitting backwards.
I just get the feeling that both these cars in second and third are just trimmed a little nicer to the track than Bradley's car today. Did you notice that both of them lunged up at the end of these straights? See that once again Brewer can go by with relative ease. They're getting in a little bit deeper, and I'd suggest they maybe have a little bit more grip through the turns, and that'll be why it looks like there's these big differences in a straight line.
Well, here comes Harrington, up on the inside, and he goes back into second spot. Jones from the leader to second, back to third. Steve Harrington continues to chase after our race leader, Marshall Brewer. Let's check them out on the Goodyear race score for you. Brewer leads in the Fast Track Racing Commodore. Second spot held by Harrington in the Bob Jane T-Marts Commodore. Third, Brad Jones in the Castrol GP50 Commodore. Then it's Terry Wyhoon in car number 25. And rounding out the 5, Mike Oliver in the Mobile Zone Falcon. 25, Terry Wyhoon, running fourth on the track in the number 25 machine. He's also been one of the AUSCAR regulars for the past 3 years. Another of the Bob Jane T-Marts Commodores. Beautifully turned out. And whilst he is certainly not on the pace of the race leaders, Brad Jones, Steve Harrington, and particularly Marshall Brewer, he's still there in a very comfortable fourth and ready for the pit stops.
Well, he finished 16th in round 1, so if he's running fourth here, that's a marked improvement.
There's the visual gap, first to second. Marshall Brewer, the Commodore, car number 69. And Steve Harrington, the yellow Bob Jane T-Marts entry. Behind him, 4 or 5 car lengths. And every time that Harrington is able to get fairly close to the bumper of the 69 machine, Brewer is really threading the needle well today. He's able to get away from him. Able to answer that challenge. So it's quite obvious that Brewer has, I guess you'd call it the hot setup today.
Yeah, he's doing a great job. It's been around AUSCAR since it started. And there's
Mike Oliver, the Mobile Zone Falcon.
He's in 5th position at the moment, the leading Ford. And very nicely turned out car too.
His crew have done a great job with that car. It clipped the wall yesterday. Went for a long slide down through the grassed area here on the front straight. A lot of work overnight. And I would have thought at this stage we could have seen Mark Seaton up, who was on the front row with Brad Jones, and still contending for the lead. Not so. He's drifted back through the pack. And it's all up now to Mike Oliver in car number 38. And keep in mind, he started out of position number 28. Once again, we take bumper cam as Brad Jones battles his way through some of the slower cars. Car number 5. He's been able to pass. But it really does give you a good idea of the banking and how steep it is here at Calder. Just look at that.
4.8 seconds behind Marshall Brewer at the moment, so the gap remains pretty much the same. Getting to the stage where he can't really see them as he deals with the traffic, and that'll frustrate him a bit for sure.
Harrington getting ready now for a slingshot to the inside of Marshall J. Brewer. Is he, or is he going to go high side this time? This is a brave move. You'd need plenty of horsepower to pull it, but they are side by side down the front straight for the lead change in the AUSCAR 150. Brad Jones pulls out and goes inside 3 wide into turn number 1. Nothing between them, all squeezing there into the bottom turn. Some brave stuff there. And Brad Jones comes from third and takes back the lead. Steve Harrington sits in second. Marshall Brewer is third, and Terry Wyhoon coming into it very quickly indeed. Car number 25. Great move that in the first corner.
That was great racing from all three of the guys. Harrington that time, as he came off the fourth turn, was a little bit out of shape, and you can see that he lost ground to Terry Wyhoon, who's now moved up to challenge Marshall Brewer. Wyhoon on the outside of Brewer into turn 1. Just on the tail of this pack in the green and white car, there's Bruce Williams as well. He's 5th.
Wyhoon's got a problem.
Yep.
He goes to the low side of the racetrack, and that opens it up again.
He's onto the pit apron. He's actually coming into pit lane, so instant problem for Terry Wyhoon. Bit of a shame, but all of a sudden Brad Jones has a 50-metre lead on the pack.
The other car mixed up in this group is Grant Monday, car 50. He's 1 lap down.
And also Bruce Williams in the number 9 car that gets by Monday. He's been looking sharp in the EV entry, the green and white Commodore, going down the back straight.
They had to, and there's Wyhoon's car into the pit.
They've obviously...
Bonnet's up.
Yes, I would have thought more of a motor or a transmission problem. Yes, I'd say probably motor more than a puncher.
Well, in that big shuffle, Mark Seaton in the Goodyear Falcons moved back up to 5th position. See if he can maintain that or slip back through the field as he's been doing in between the yellow flag sections. Crew discussing there. Terry Wyhoon obviously a bit steamed up, very disappointed sitting in there the pits after such a strong run early in the race.
It was a good run too.
Meanwhile, at the front,
it's on again.
Marshall Brewer will be inside Brad Jones as they turn in. Very deep under brakes, as he's been doing all day. Very brave there. So the fast track Commodore takes the lead back from Jones Castrol example. But it doesn't look like he's getting a streak away from Bradley just yet. Marshall's shown a superior race speed all day. And Bruce Williams is closing in on the leaders. The gap's down to about 3 seconds, so we can expect Harrington and Williams to keep on closing this gap. And he might have a 4-car train at the front. Peter Fitzgerald in the 03 Goodyear car. He's having his first run in AUSCAR today.
That looks like Lee Watkins in the Snickers entry, car number 47. Yep. The Falcon.
Fitzgerald is a couple of laps down in the field and in position 18. And it's actually running VP bodywork. Current series Holden.
Yeah, it's a brand new car, this.
It's got a bit of a problem. It's got a bit of smoke or something.
And the car seems to be wandering around on the road surface a bit. Something seems to be a bit amiss in the front end.
Wheel bearing self-destructing or something like that. Wyhoon's car there in the foreground. They've been having problems with that in the last few minutes. Turned into a pretty unhappy day for him. Right on the pace early on, though, so lots of potential for the next round. Marshall Brewer, 35 years of age.
And you'll notice that Marshall Brewer is slowing Brad Jones.
Yep, the car was misfiring severely as it came past our commentary point there. Marshall had a misfire in the engine in the warning warm-up, and maybe this may be a recurrence of that problem.
Put the Moz on him as soon as we brought the stat up, which is disappointing.
Oh,
they've got
praying up in the top.
2 cars out of shape coming off turn 4. So Brewer in strife, the race leader.
Kenai Anson in the black Commodore there. All sorts of trouble. They're all starting to go everywhere. The race now under yellow.
Yeah, I think he might have... he's clipped the wall or clipped another car or something. You can see that's there's a little bit of damage around the front left there.
Well, when Brad went back to the front and took him on the inside...
They can't get the jack under the side of the car when the thing's flat. You see the boys going to have to rock it over to get the jack in. Now they've got it. Someone else has been shown a black flag there. And I think it was Marshall Brewer.
So Marshall comes down onto the pit apron, and it's likely to be just a stop-go penalty, which is not what he needs right now.
No, well, he's already incurred his own penalty anyway because he had that problem with the front left, which may have been his fault or may not have been. We don't know that. He's either clipped the wall or had a bump with another competitor and had to limp round for a lap.
And we're getting ready for a restart, so that is going to be a costly stop-and-go penalty for Marshall Brewer.
That's bad luck.
Green flag comes out. Mike Oliver and the Falcon goes through to take over the lead, the mobile zone entry. And here's Brad Jones down on the inside. And the Castrol Commodore runs there in second spot.
Well, it's not just a stop-go penalty for Marshall Brewer. He's been in the pits for a while, then picking up tyres and wheel jacks, so...
It would appear as though there's some form of vigorous debate on down there at the moment, so...
Well, he's just about to drop a lap.
Now, Bradley Jones has very smartly dispensed with Steve Harrington, even though Harrington came out in front on the road after that pit stop. And he's chasing Mike Oliver. There's Mike in the Blue Falcon.
It's a great showing from Oliver. He's obviously a bit of a Ford fan. He also runs a Falcon NASCAR, and there's not too many of those things are in the country at the moment.
Another couple of cars in strife between turns 1 and 2. A big shunt. Car 7 is Rodney Jane. That's the second time he's been in strife today, and I think it was in the same spot. Can't quite pick up the number on the other car. And Marshall Brewer has now departed the pits, so that's been an unbelievably long stop. I don't know what the penalty's for. We're attempting to try and get an answer to that one for you at the moment.
Well, Rodney Jane's the car sitting on the grass there. That's a shame for him, the rookie.
Brad Jones sits in the Castrol Commodore. It's like a demolition derby, Brad.
Plenty of action out here, Mike. I'm I'm glad I haven't been too close to much of it.
Now, how come if you started off the pole and the bloke in front of you started off 28 in a Ford and you can't pass him?
Well, I was wondering that myself a little. No, he hasn't made a pit stop yet, so hopefully he'll stop soon and I'll get by him.
49 laps remain and we go back to racing. Oliver tries to get away with Jones hot on his heels. And watch Jones pull to the outside with Harrington right behind him. And they both tackled the leader. In fact, Harrington got away so quickly, almost snaffled Jones getting down into the bottom corner.
They touched as they went down to turn 1. It was only a little kiss, but they nevertheless rubbed mudguards.
Mike Oliver was just swamped. I don't know whether he picked up a wrong gear there, but he got lost about 6, 7, possibly 8 positions.
It's good stuff from here, let me tell you. Here's Brad Jones back on the inside of Steve Harrington. Goodyear race cam.
Well, our race leader in the Ford under yellow has slipped back to 7th position, so back to Commodore country at the front.
7th on the road, but still 3rd, in fact.
A black flag for a penalty to Richard Howe in the 11 car. That's Richard just in front of Brad Jones. He was down a lap.
I've got a bit of information on the Marshall Brewer thing from race control. Apparently the reason that he was brought in was, in fact, 2 things, I think. Incorrect re-entry to the track from the pits, and he was also in the wrong position in the pits whilst they were doing the refueling and also changing tyres. So that's cost him dearly today. And look, as Harrington now makes a lunge down the inside of Jones, I would expect these guys are going to run flat to the boards now to the checkered flag.
Down hard, Brad slams the gate and leads. There's the gap as we look back on the Goodyear race cam through the rear of Brad Jones' Commodore. It's out to a couple of car lengths down the back straight. Mike Oliver, to his credit, has been able to pick up a couple of those spots that he lost, and he's got it wound up on a string and charging at the Commodores at the moment. So if he's able to turn the lap times he did early in the race and pass as many cars, I would expect him to be up there in 3rd and fairly close to Steve Harrington. And there's Brewer, 1 lap down, still trying to prove who has the fastest Commodore here. Not necessarily the winning one. We take the bumper cam on the front of Brad Jones' car. Let's go to our Goodyear race score and take a look at how they run. Brad Jones, race leader in the Castrol GP50 Commodore. 2nd is Steve Harrington in the Bob J. T-Mart's machine. 3rd, Mike Oliver in the Mobile Zone Falcon. 4th is Mark Seaton in the Goodyear Falcon. And rounding out the 5, Ken James in the Adjib Motor Oils Commodore.
Not all.
Welcome back to Calder Park Thunderdome. Hope you're enjoying the highlights of the Goodyear AUSCAR 150 from this circuit back in December. Well, the rain continues here this afternoon, although it has cleared just a little in the last 20 minutes or so.
Just getting a little bit lighter towards the west and the northwest, Mike, and you can see in the foreground, though, we've still got some rain tumbling, which is disappointing for all those race fans that have come out for this 4th round of the championship in both the AUSCAR and the NASCAR. And look at this jet truck. We saw a demonstration a little earlier in the day. This thing is quick. Makes a fearful noise. The guys at Tullamarine are wondering why this isn't showing up on radar.
They could actually tip it on its lid and it'd probably dry the track out. Here he goes with a burnout down the pit lane. Oh, he's got it loose.
He's had the big lose and launched it sideways, much to the delight of the crowd in the main grandstand here. And he's fired her off backwards, and that is exactly how not to do a demonstration.
Well, in the meantime, while the officials work on trying to dry the racetrack out, we're going to return to the Goodyear AUSCAR 150. Brad Jones and Steve Harrington. What a race. Here comes the finish. Brad Jones continues to lead, but the yellow flag coming out. And the pace car. Crikeys, they couldn't have picked this at a more opportune time. Might level them all up in the sprint to the checkered flag this afternoon.
I can't figure out what that one's for. The track looks to be clear.
Is this the pressure you needed to bring the pack back onto your back?
Not my idea of a good time, Mike. No, I was pretty happy the way things were, actually.
That puts Harrington up behind you, and with about 17 laps to go.
Oh, that's great. I couldn't ask for much more, really, could I?
I just thought I'd make your day for you, son.
Yeah.
That was a pretty hairy scrape earlier on with Marshall.
What was all that about? I guess he wanted to get his lap back, and I sort of signalled to him that when we got clear I'd let him go by, but he was a little impatient, so which is fine. He let Steve by, and then I go tact.
And Brad has really eased the pace up here. Steve Harrington is hanging back to try and get the shot, looking for the green light and the green flag. Brad gasses it up. He's off, and Harrington is after him. Seaton gets away fairly smartly. Mike Oliver has got a major problem. His car didn't even make the start. And as they move on to the back straight, we have a real race going with about 12 and a half laps remaining. Down the back straight, Stephen Harrington and Bradley Jones, both in Commodores, fighting out for win number 2 in the series. And they've got them sideways back behind. They're all going in every which direction through that corner. How they all missed. There's one poised. Monday hit the wall backwards.
That's Owen Davies, car number 88, the yellow and blue car just in the foreground there, but one tapped the wall very solidly. There's 46, John Faulkner. And there was another car just before that incident that had started to smoke quite badly as well.
So a lap in, we're back to yellow flags.
So the one that you can't see there is Monday. He's pointing the wrong way up against the wall. There he is. I make 15 cars.
Field is slowly depleting.
Yeah. Lucky there's not an extra few laps in this.
We started with 33 cars. So it's pretty punishing sort of motor racing, this.
We should be down with about 8 laps to go when the pace car pulls off into pit lane. A crackerjack finish. Pace car now down the pit lane. Brad Jones holding them back. He's got Harrington behind him, getting ready to try and gas it up as they come in for the green flag. Yes, the green waves.
Gee, Brad's good at that.
And cars jump out running in all directions. Brad's away, Steve Harrington. In fact, Harrington falls into the hands of Mark Seaton very quickly. And Seaton closes up in the Ford Falcon, the Goodyear entry, as they go onto the back straight. Jones clear, halfway down the back straight, leading it from Harrington, who's getting a little bit closer to the tail of the Castrol Commodore. Seaton is the next one, then followed by Ken James and Marshall Brewer, once again charging back through the pack as they come off turn number 4 down through the tri-oval.
Brad makes a great jump each time, but Steve's opening lap's always a boomer, and he's managed to regain a fair bit of that ground just in the past lap. 143 laps down, 7 to run, a little less.
Mike Oliver in the second of the Falcon is tapped in behind Ken James in 5th position. But Bradley holding station at the front. This is where we see the crunch, just how much race speed has Brad Jones got on board this Castrol Commodore.
Coming across the line, Jones.
5 laps to go.
With, I think what you call probably a fair buffer over Steve Harrington at this stage. Similar gap then back to Mark Seaton as Jones ducks on the inside of this lap car on the back straight. Sorry, I was going to say Marshall Brewer has already passed Mike Oliver.
This has been a pretty impressive performance by Brad, given that there's no decent communications to his crew at the moment. It's been a day where I thought that he just didn't have the car speed and didn't quite have it together, but he's come back and shown that I'm absolutely wrong, and he's managing to hold off Steve at the moment quite comfortably. If anything, I think he's starting to open the gap.
I think
Sure
he is.
Yep. He's a bit of a professor out there. He quite often early in the race you'll see him drop off the pace a little bit. but he always bottles it up for this last 20 or 30 laps.
It's a chess game, isn't it? And requires a bit of bravery to back in those early stages, 40 and 50 laps in, to let the leaders get that far in front of you, 5-6 seconds. But I suppose history shows there's always going to be a yellow flag.
They've got about 2 laps remain as Brad Jones, 3 laps rather, as they go down to the bottom turn. Work their way along the back straight. Harrington giving it everything he's got to try and pull back Jones. Time has run out, though, I think, for Steve Harrington today. Mark Seaton in the Goodyear Ford Falcon. Still a strong third at this stage of the race.
Yep, just got past Rod Wilson there lapping him. He's in a strong third, but I don't think there's going to be much he can do about Jones or Harrington. 2 laps to go as they cross the line.
Well, I think he can start banking the check.
Don't you dare say that, but I've seen things happen in the last lap here. They come along the back straight. Bradley Jones, the Castrol Commodore, up into turn number 3. Steve Harrington closer than he was, I think, the last lap, but time is going to beat him. Spectators getting ready now as the white flag comes out with 1 lap to go in the Goodyear AUSCAR Classic. Albury's Brad Jones, Mr. AUSCAR, heads down into turn number 1.
And this result will turn the championship on its head. 1 apiece for Harrington and Jones. The point scores will be dead level as they head into the 3rd round.
Great stuff here today. Harrington is closer than he has been. He is lunging at Jones as they go down the back straight. Another couple of laps may have made the difference, but Jones getting set now as he comes off the 4th turn. Spectators to their feet, hats in the air, and Brad Jones of Albury takes the Goodyear AUSCAR Christmas Classic. Steve Harrington finishes in 2nd for the Commodore, and Mark Seaton 3rd in the Goodyear Falcon. Great drive to Brad Jones. He makes it look so easy.
Something of an unexpected result, I think, particularly if you go back and look at the early laps of this race. But Brad Jones, congratulations, mate. A great performance, and you had us guessing early on.
Well, as I said to you, you had a problem with the car. The gearbox was a bit funny, so I tried to nurse it for a while and attack at the end of the race, and panned out really well for us.
Makes the battle for the championship very interesting now, doesn't it?
Well, it's a tie now, so it's a tough tussle, but hopefully the good guys will come out on top.
Car worked all right.
Car was very nice, except for the gearbox. It was perfect. The GP50 Commodore was just fantastic today.
Thanks again, Brad, and thanks for taking time out to chat with us, and we'll look forward to seeing you for round 3. Mike, you might like to confirm those placings for us and tell us about the championship.
Yes, thanks very much, Neil. Big crowd here, very receptive today to the win by Brad Jones. Jones taking out the big one for the Goodyear AUSCAR Series, round number 2. 2nd spot going to Steve Harrington in the Bob Jane T-Mart's Commodore. Mark Seaton placed 3rd in the Goodyear Falcon. 4th was Mike Oliver, and 5th was Ken James. And we'll be back at Calder after the break with the Killer Kingswoods.
Time now for the Holden Wise HQ Series over 15 laps, and a full field, a massive field, over 40 cars out there to do battle on the Calder Thunderdome. And we've seen some tremendous racing from these guys in recent years, and it's a pretty hot battle for the series. Let's take a look at the way they'll line up. The man that's got pole position in car number 88 is the winner of the earlier race today, Tony Malley. Alongside him will be car 86, Robin Keatley from Ballarat. From 3, it's 47, Scott Wood. From 4, it's car number 14, Darren Mankin. From 5, 106, Shane Press. Out of position number 6, it's 24, Cameron Yates. From 7, it's 9, Mick Webb. From 8, it's 96, Jim Waring. From position 9, it's 71, David Bullock. And rounding out the top 10, it's car number 3, Lance Bennett.
Pace cars, the new Ford Pace cars, come into the pits, and I think we're just about set to go racing. Green flag out, so the Holden Wise HQ Kingswood Trophy race is underway. And Tony Malley in car number 88 getting away smartly on the inside to leave them going down to the bottom turn. Scott Wood up closely behind him. That's the order 1-2 as they sweep through turns 1 and 2 and work their way onto the back straight.
Tony Malley opening up a tiny little gap at the end of the back straight for the first time. Scott Wood's made a good start. Robin Keatley, always a man to watch in this class, up high at the moment, battling for 2nd position. Red, white and blue car there.
Darren Mankin in 4th position. All over each other as they head down the main straight for the first 15 laps.
Mankin making a good move between cars as they head down to turn number 1, car number 14. And we'll see whether or not that's paid off for him as they exit the second turn and now come down the back straight. I'll tell you what, the leader's bolted. Tony Malley got a 2-car Kingswood break over the pack. And there's Mankin on the outside.
Mankin's actually taken second place.
Yes,
Scott Wood tucks in behind him in the yellow Kingswood. Swarm like a herd of cattle, thundering down the main straight once again.
It was Robin Keatley I actually meant. Went very wide in the last turn trying to get a run at the pack.
Got a big shutdown in turn 2 at the moment. Cars going left, right and centre, and there's the man that was right in the centre of it.
Car number 06, Shane Press, in the Europe Trailers entry. Let's have a look at this on our action replay and see what happened. The one on the inside is the one that's caused the problem. It's headed from the infield to the wall, and that's what's happened. And here they come. Tony Malley will lead them around. Just look at the numbers. Green flag now displayed. No, Malley leads them down the front straight. Car number 47, Scott Wood, getting into second. Going the outside as they go into turn number 1.
Robin Keatley and Mankin blocking the third and fourth. 7 laps remaining in a Holden-wise HQ Holden Series race. And Keatley, here he goes, down the inside. Well and truly got him covered under brakes.
There's one going very wide through that turn as Keatley brings them back on to the start, finishing straight through the tri-oval. Malley drops back into second and now has a run down the outside himself. Oh no, he's switched back to the inside.
So 3 wide as they come onto the banking. Malley's back in front. Keatley hangs on to second place. Scott Wood all over the back of Keatley's car. So evenly matched. Everyone looking for that little extra bit of speed. And here comes Mick Webb in car 9. Down the inside of Scott Wood as they dive onto the banks.
He's got the right line for the turn, but the poor guy in the blue car on the outside was really hung out to dry.
Yeah, that's Mankin. He got pushed. Oh, he lost 2 positions. Oh, no, he's lost a bundle of positions now.
Got a couple of cars up on the wall here. There's one of them. Car number 32.
Lindsay Gray.
The whole idea is to try and hold it there and not let it run down the racetrack.
Lindsay Gray in car 32. And
he's out of harm's way. Yellow out momentarily. Let's have a look on the replay what actually happened. He got a tail up into the wall through here. And a very gentle slide all the way past our cameraman, holding the brakes on all the time. Lindsay Gray out of harm's way. Green flag out. 3 laps remain now for the charge to the checker. Malley has gone back into the lead. Keatley is there, and Mick Webb in car number 9 runs third on the road at the moment. Wood goes the outside in the yellow Kingswood. See whether or not Mick Webb can mount a challenge as they come onto the back straight. The pole sitter, Tony Malley, still in front.
Robin Keatley, a fairly experienced HQ campaigner around here, tucking into second place. And Mick Webb looking always troublesome in third place. He's second in the championship at the moment. And Scott Wood is third. So the real battle for the championship here is between third and fourth place as they go white flag out, the final lap.
Malley's doing the sensible thing. He's really hugging low into this turn, making them all go out and around him. Here they come for the final time, charging along the back straight here at Thunderdome. Malley still there. Webb down the inside. Keatley on the outside. Could be a great finish here.
Mick's not going to let second place go in a hurry.
Off turn 4. Malley will guide them in for the checkered flag. Checker out. Malley will get there. Keatley, I think, and Webb third. Wood is fourth. That looks like the order in this sprint race, the Holden-wise HQ Kingswood event. It's a good drive there from Tony Malley, who was able to shut the door closed on them all by hugging the inside in the last quarter lap of that race. Okay, let's check them out on the Goodyear race score. Confirmed placings for the event just decided. Tony Malley, race winner. Robin Keegley finishes back in second spot. Third was Mick Webb, a good try. Scott Wood, always there, finishes in fourth. And Tim de Ombrain finishes back in fifth spot. And we'll be back at Calder for all the NASCAR action in just a moment. Back here at Calder Park Thunderdome, not too much has changed with the weather. But I'll tell you what, there's a group of competitors out there ready to go and run in the rain. The Formula Vs, and here they come onto the racetrack now. The Formula Vs making their first appearance on the oval. And as you can see, they have a fairly dismal afternoon to do it. Neil Crompton.
Yes, the first time we've seen open wheelers on the Calder Thunderdome complex, but I don't think you could pick worse conditions to be out there. As you can see, the track is wet, slippery. Of course, in these open wheelers, you've got lots of spray and water and garbage going all over your visor and into the car, so it's going to be generally unpleasant for everybody. But the whole field's formed up at the moment behind the Falcon Pace cars, and it's a big field of cars. And on pole position, we have Warwick Manderson. So it'll be very interesting to see how these little jiggers go around here. They'll generate a fair bit of pace, and if they're true to their normal form, even in these conditions, Mark Osler, we're going to see slipstreaming and plenty of jostling for position. 25 cars in all, and some pretty good runners in there.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see how they go around this place. The track's pretty bumpy, and of course wet. There's a lot of rubber down, a bit of oil, and in the slippery conditions, it should be quite changeable for these guys.
We should point out that in the case of the AUSCAR and NASCAR entries, they don't traditionally run in wet conditions, particularly the NASCAR vehicles. They don't have a wet weather tyre. They don't have provision for things like wipers and what have you. It's possible that maybe at some point in the future, AUSCARs may be able to run a wet weather configuration by not buffing their tyres down as substantially as they do for the dry weather racing. But that's a question for the future. Right now, we're concentrating on Formula Vs for the first time, and the pace cars pull low as the field lines up and faces the green flag for the first time. The Bob Jane T-Mart's 10-lapper for the Formula Vs, and we are racing as the green flag comes out.
They do take a while to get up to racing speed.
They are actually racing, yeah.
As they head down towards turn number 1.
Warwick Manderson in the day-glow orange, very brightly coloured car, sweeps to the high side of the banking as he leads the field around for the first time.
Tony Boquet in second position.
That'll give you an idea of the speed, or the lack of it, as they come off the second corner and come down the back straight. Heading up into turn number 3 now, and our pole sitter Warwick Manderson leads them, coming off 4. Tony Boquet sitting in there not too far back behind him, and one making a run down the inside is Max Hill. Keep an eye on him in the yellow V. In a preliminary race this morning, they had a ding-dong battle for just on 8 laps, side by side. So it's your pace setter Warwick Manderson and Mal Hill, not Max. Mal Hill up into the second spot now as they come down the back straight.
Looks like Mal might lose a little something in a straight line, but he was quick into the turns as they head up here into turn 3. 2 leaders running a high line, our third place man running a little low.
These cars in dry qualifying conditions were lapping about 41 seconds, so they're about 3.5 seconds slower than the Holden HQs around here. Gives you an idea of how fast or how slow they are.
Look at Mal out by the wall. Coming up on the outside now of Warwick Manderson as they go down into the first turn. 24-degree banking. He sets it up the top part of the banking and gets by on the outside. Probably took a very deep breath as he went by him on the outside. And these guys, I guess, maybe might embarrass a few of the other blokes this afternoon, because they're open wheelers. They're certainly not running on slicks, but they're holding well on the banking. And there's still a lot of rain on the racetrack, as you can see. They come off turn number 4 down to the completion of another lap, the second circuit here in the 10-lapper for Bob Jane T-Marts. And the front-running 3, I'll tell you what, you could almost throw a blanket. Might be a wet one, but you could throw one over them.
they've put a fairly large gap into the fellas in 4th and 5th and beyond. For the best part of half the straight length, it's car number 7 in 4th place.
Warwick Manderson ducks under Hill, but Hill's not going to let him go. And it is getting down to wheel-to-wheel racing now. These two very evenly matched. And the whole field on paper very evenly matched. Certainly you couldn't get a more controlled formula than a Formula V.
Well, this really how close they were this morning in the 8th lapper. These two guys just ran side by side for the entire race. Mal Hill up on the outside again, makes a very long straight of this, and he'll try and snip him as they lap another car there, and he'll go in deeper than Warwick Manderson into the next turn, or will he? No, Manderson stays high above the line. Now this is going to seem a long way round for Mal Hill, but he does it and pockets that lap car beautifully.
Mal Hill would be pretty used to the slippery stuff. He's a former motorcycle racer in off-road and dirt track events. 31 years of age.
The only one to be more relaxed here this afternoon would be Ben Crop.
I'm surprised that we haven't seen more guys spearing off. The field's still largely intact, although they're spread out a fair way at the moment. But Hill in control, car number 4, the yellow car, crosses the line. Great scrap on for 2nd and 3rd. Manderson on the inside, car number 1. He's an accountant by trade. Crunching a few numbers now, and he's come up with the right calculations and goes through into the lead.
He figured that one out correctly. Now he's taken the lead back, Warwick Manderson. Here's the approach to the very long back straight here at Thunderdome. They're flat strap.
Halfway, lap 5 of a 10-lapper.
It's actually getting wetter too, the rain tumbling down even harder now.
These cars running on grooved, I guess you could say, road-style tyres. And that'll be helping them with a bit of grip on this slippery stuff. But those concrete walls on the outside of Thunderdome would look pretty ominous to these other cars.
Now Mal Hill has had a look over the shoulder. There's a lap car coming up. Points to the outside. That's exactly where Mal was going, and also Warwick. Warwick's got enough horsepower. He might be able to get alongside on the back straight, but Mal Hill continues to lead, going down the back straight. Car number 4. Doing it comfortably, getting plenty of spray, I would think, too, of some of these lap cars. And actually, that's the biggest gap he's had over Warwick Manderson in the race so far.
From our viewpoint, from the viewpoint of the camera, it would appear as though it's probably not that hard to see out there, Mike, but when you're tucked in behind the guy in front, it's unbelievably misty and foggy, and you only get blurred images. Of course, there's no way of cleaning your visor properly. You just keep throwing your glove out occasionally. But it's real hard going. Well, not so bad for the guy in front. That's a real advantage, but he still would be struggling. And it's also hard when you're in lap traffic, and I reckon now Hill's just got that break he needed as he wound his way through a bit of the traffic. And what was a 3-way battle became a 2, and now pretty much a 1-horse race.
Mal Hill continues to lead the Bob Jane T-Mart's Formula V sprint race here this afternoon. The atrocious conditions for oval track racing. Keep in mind the water running down the circuit.
This prompts the question, I wonder what a more powerful exotic open wheeler would be like around here. It'd be interesting to see.
Well, these cars don't have a lot of power to play with. I think 55 or 60 horsepower peak for a good VW engine. They're on the torsion bar suspension that the Volkswagen Beetle has. Very controlled, very cheap sort of racing car.
A lot of fun though, and it's brought a lot of people into the sport. And the good thing is that for many years the costs have been controlled, as you say, Mark. And really it just comes down to car preparation. As we look at Manderson, position 2, car 1. And of course driver skill, and that's the critical thing. It's not a formula about technology. It's mostly a formula about enjoyment.
Guys like John Smith, John Bow, and I think Rowan Onslow too began their racing careers in Formula Vs. As we clock up the last lap. And the rain is getting heavier, the track getting wetter. The conditions are pretty appalling at the moment. Formula V's cutting their way through the spray.
It's an impressive drive from Hill. Yeah, he's really opened up in the last 2 or 3 laps and now really has a comfort zone, a decent buffer. Manderson in 2nd place, and you can forget the rest.
There's the gap, 1st to 2nd. Back straight for the final time. Mal Hill, car number 4. Pokes it down into the 3rd turn, stays low, just to make sure If Manderson can mount a challenge, he can thwart that on the way to the checkered flag. And the checkered flag about to come out as the first Formula V winner at Calder Park Thunderdome. Mal Hill-Car number 4 beats home Warwick Manderson and Tony Boquette in car number 3. I'd take my hat off to these guys. I mean, there's a lot of blokes out there that would prefer to load them up on the trailers this afternoon and take them home and keep them straight. But these guys attacked it like professionals. Not one spin, not one clout, not one touch of wheels. So here's our leader and our winner, Mal Hill-Car number 4. He takes the Bob Jane T-Mart's sprint race here this afternoon. Second place goes to Warwick Manderson in car number 1. And Tony Boquette in car number 3 finishes back in 3rd place. We'll be back at Calder in just a moment. Park Thunderdome, not a lot has changed since that rather wet Formula V race. And both the AUSCAR and NASCAR drivers at the moment voting whether or not they will in fact race here this afternoon. And they're running out of time, let me tell you. American Terry Fisher and Rodney Combs, a standout NASCAR performer in the United States, both came here in December hoping to win the NASCAR 150 Summer National. Rodney Combs had pole for the race. Fisher started deep in the field. What a duel they put on in the closing laps of the event. Back here at Calder Park Thunderdome, we have the NASCARs coming out onto the circuit now for their major event of today. And that is, of course, the 125-lap Christmas Classic. At the moment, the Ford pace cars bringing the field around, and it is a crackerjack field here today at Calder. 25 starters for the 125-lap journey. We have the spectators just about ready to stand and cheer to all the drivers and wave caps and everything else as they come down the start-finishing straight. And as they do, let's take a look at the lineup here today. Pole position from Lost Creek in West Virginia, Rodney Combs in the Saxon Heater Chevy. From position number 2 and 26, Terry Byers of Wollongong. In the Bob Jane T-Mart's Pontiac from 3, it's car number 8, Charlie O'Brien in the Oldsmobile. From 490, the second of the Americans, Jeff Fuller in the NASCAR Pontiac. From 5, it's 55, Sydney's George Elliott. From position 6 in car number 3, the Valvoline Pontiac. Your driver is Alan Grice. From 7 in 109 from the USA, Terry Fisher in the Midgley Pontiac. From 8, number 11, Pride of Tasmania, Robin Best. From 9, it's car number 7, Barry Blake from Western Australia. From 10, 23, Ian Thomas from Cairns. They're the top 10 as we take our wheel cam. Now we're riding on the outside of the front row, Terry Byers. Mark Woodley, John Joyster and Charlie Busby putting together this great view. That's the outside of the front row. And there off to the left you can see Rodney Combs. That's our Bob Jane T-Mart race cam. Rodney Combs carrying 2 units, one on top of the hood of the Saxon Heaters entry. And if we want to go inside and have a look at what Rodney's doing at the office this afternoon, all we do is trip one switch. And there he is, the pole sitter for today. Former Marlborough Grand National winner many times in Sydney on the short tracks at Liverpool. A face that is well known by all the short track followers of Australia. It's time to go racing in the 125-lap NASCAR Christmas Classic, and away they go. The green flag is out, and it's Combs to the outside with Terry Byers dropping in, and Charlie O'Brien away to a very quick start on the inside. Jeff Fuller is up. Gricey also a very good start in the Valvoline Pontiac, and they'll come off turn number 2 and work the back straight. Combs won't be sitting around waiting for anyone. He's off and running. Byers into second, O'Brien is third, George Elliott is into 4th spot, Alan Grice on the inside, and Jeff Fuller the outside. They come in to complete the first lap, and there's only 124 to go.
25-car field, very strong entry for the NASCAR race at Thunderdome this afternoon. Look at Rodney Combs, the American, the experienced American. Got the right equipment under him now. He's really showing what he can do. Terry Byers in second place. Charlie O'Brien, the bright yellow car, in third. George Elliott, NASCAR man in 4th as they sweep onto the second banking.
All through the first couple of laps without incident. Calder Giles also making a great start in that very distinctive Hog's Press saloon entry, the pink car. You'll see that as we get through the race. Cars running fairly close together as they come past the grandstand going down into turn number 1. There's the gap, first over second. As we welcome Bradley Jones, the AUSCAR race winner, joining us for a little look at the NASCARs, and he plans on doing a little bit of this racing himself. Bradley, welcome aboard.
Thanks, Mike.
It's been like the Brad Jones show today.
Well, I think that's all about to change now. The NASCARs are out there, and they're certainly circulating quickly, aren't they?
Yeah, qualifying was a pretty tight contest. First 10 cars covered by less than a second. Rodney Combs 28.08 seconds. As we take a race cam, a nice new view of the Thunderdome from the side of Terry Byers' Pontiac. These big 1,600 kilogram NASCARs, about 600 odd horsepower. And you can see how much they're jumping.
We've got a spin back in the pack, and there we catch it. And I think it's Phil Brock that's come off the wall. And it may have been Ken Laws in the number 6 machine.
He's gathered it up.
But Phil Brock, I think it was, coming into the pits now. Very distinctive looking car, great paint job. It's not as straight as it was about 5 minutes ago, and he's in for some very, very quick attention. In the meantime, Combs lines up. When we get a chance, we'll show you our action replay of what actually happened there. It was towards the back of the field. One down on the inside. That may well have been Laws, and that's Phil Brock, who's kissed the wall and somehow managed contact with those tail end cars to wind up back in his pit bay. A very lucky moment indeed for Phil Brock. We go back to racing green here at Calder Park Thunderdome. Rocket Rodney takes off in the Saxon Heaters machine going down into turn number 1. Being tailed in there by Terry Byers. Queenslander Charlie O'Brien is next on the queue, and right behind him is George Elliott. Jeff Fuller of the United States is the next place driver, and then Terry Fisher. So the Americans certainly in the top 10 here today, as Combs leads them off 4. Once again back across the line. Black flag with a number going out to one of the drivers back in the pack. Not quite sure if he spotted it. They do have these stop-and-go penalties.
It's Grice. Now, that's a bit strange because he didn't get off the start very well, and I thought maybe he's having gearbox troubles or something, but they've given him a black flag, and he has to pit. Yep, he's coming into the pits now.
So Grice will go in and take a stop-and-go penalty. We'll clarify that, the reason for the penalty, as Grice heads down pit lane. I bet he's really wild about all of this, but he'll pull in.
The trick will be if he doesn't go down a lap.
Now, he's copped his stop and go, and he won't go down a lap. Providing he can wind it up quickly, he'll stay on the same lap. And the next time they have a yellow flag, he might be able to pick up that distance.
Well, he's just coming out of the pits now.
And there's another one, too, for someone.
Yep. Car 2.
Brock, who's already been in and out of the pits once since the restart, so he's obviously done something wrong as well.
And the word we have from race control was Grice was penalised for passing on the left on the restart.
Well,
that's all academic stuff, fellas, really.
Pretty tough.
A bit of movement there, Bradley.
It's amazing. You can actually see the car's got a little bit of a push in it going into the turn, and you can pick that up by the direction he's pointing the wheel. This is fantastic stuff.
From a driver's point of view, do you feel all that feedback through the wheel?
Well, yes, you do. You know you've got to put a little bit of correction in and when to get on the throttle, and he'll be thinking about how he's going to change the car on his pit stop. This is amazing vision.
Well, bad luck there for Tony Southwell. You can't really do a pit stop under the green here and play any part in a top 10 finish.
No.
Trevor Nicholson is in the pits, and Terry Byers is back in too, so that's beginning of the end.
He's gone down another lap, so after looking so good so early, it's all gone away from Terry in the 26 machine.
It's a great shame. He qualified only about 3/10 off Combs' time in qualifying.
And our race leader is into the pits. Now, maybe he's cut down a tyre.
Could have. That's bad luck for Combs.
Race cam of Rodney Combs' Saxon Heaters Chevy Lumina.
He doesn't look to be in any sort of a hurry here. No. I wonder what the plan is.
Looks a bit casual.
Neither of the crew.
Well, there's nothing happening in the engine department. Is there?
No.
Stop and go? No.
Couldn't be.
It's
round the back. She's terminal.
They've got a motor problem.
That's bad luck for Rodney.
So Charlie O'Brien And the number 8 car leads them down the front straight with Elliott. Then Jeff Fuller of the United States. Giles doing a good job back behind them in the pink car. A shot of that later. That's got to be the wildest paint job I've seen here for the weekend. There's 1, 2, 3 going down the front straight. Byers coming back through the pack. Very, very fast indeed. He's closing at the moment on Ian Thomas in the number 23 car.
And that shows, as you said, Brett, there's a lot of hard work going on inside that car.
He's certainly going for it at the moment. He's got everything to gain, nothing to lose. So it's still a long race. If he can get to the leaders and pick a couple of laps up, who knows where he might finish.
There's some interest here on the front straight as the leaders come through. O'Brien, right on his bumper is George Elliott and Jeff Fuller of the United States. Fuller just got almost the short back and sides from a lap car, had to ease out and get it straight, then attack once again. Now they're coming up behind another couple of slower cars. Brad said earlier, Elliott's car tending to push a little coming out of the turns, but I think he has a bit of a break in horsepower over Jeff Fuller.
It certainly looks very strong. But Jeff certainly got him covered in the turns. He's all over him.
Great days. One thing one always has to compliment the Calder management about, the transponders, the way they lap the cars here. The computer printout on each lap. The problem that we've got is that poor old Charlie O'Brien's transponder's broken down. Of course, the computer doesn't know the difference, so they don't show him on the leaderboard, but he is the leader, make no mistake about it. Car number 8. Elliott runs in second. Fuller is back behind them. There's 3 of them, or 4 of them up into the wall.
And I think Terry Byers is involved in all that. Ian Thomas just has a big spin. Oh, the Falcon!
They're still hitting. 5, 6 cars involved there.
John Stefanik is 41. He's involved in that. Phil Brock goes to the pit lane. You can bank on there being a fair stoppage here to try and get rid of the wrecks. Ambulance very quickly on the scene down there. Might have a look at our action replay and see what we could pick from that. We were following the leaders through that turn, and it just happened a little behind them. Going in.
Bit of a touch.
Well, I think he was already gone before he got the touch. Is that not Brock? Phil Brock.
Now, Byers up high, he's about to get it.
So at this stage, there's only 2 cars involved, but there's no road up there.
Now Byers just squeezes through there, but look at this.
Bulldozes his way
That's
through.
Ian Thomas. And now wait for the arrival of Jerry Bowers. Here it comes.
100 miles an hour, whack.
The back of the car clips.
So.
It can be a lottery out there in situations like that. You can be half a lap behind the leader and still join an accident.
That's Terry Byers' car. Keep in mind he was up against the wall. And the cars single file come beneath our camera. Let's check out the Goodyear race score at the moment. Race leader Charlie O'Brien of Queensland. Second spot being held by George Elliott in the NASCAR Australian Chevy. Third is Jeff Fuller of the United States. Fourth, the man from the Blue Mountains, Walter Giles. And running in fifth, Tasmania's Robin Best. Jeff coming up here behind Phil Brock. There's a bit of traffic in front of him. Let's see which side he goes. He does a good job. Threads the eye of the needle, goes straight between those 2 cars, but he can't get between these. Fisher goes the outside. Oops, and almost a tap on the black car there on the exit to the turn. Well, he lost out in that one, but that was pretty hairy stuff, though.
Well, that's, the chance you got to take, Mike, to take that open hole, and his hole closed up and Fisher's opened up, so, that's racing.
I think Phil Brock was the man who found himself right in the middle of all that. Probably just as well he kept it reasonably straight, because it would have been awful messy if he turned.
Well, I'm glad he did that time, because earlier there was, I think, a discrepancy on him, so he did a good job that time of letting him go by.
Car number 5, Max Dumsney, coming back through the pack. Not the best of weekends so far for Max, the current Australian Sprint Car champion, the winner of the ASC Series last year. There's Max, 32 years of age, lives in Sydney now, formerly from Warrnambool, Australian champ 89-90 and 90-91. NASCAR Rookie of the Year this year, and of course third in the Gold Coast NASCAR race also this year. He's a very busy boy, but he loves the NASCAR racing. He and John Sidney have formed a partnership. That's their car, the number 5 car, and he's doing reasonably well here as he comes back through the pack.
Yeah, Michael, Max Dempsey, I think the first time he come out, we had cars out here, and I let him get in that car, and he was quite comfortable in it, and he couldn't believe how quick he ran in about 15, 20 laps. So I was sort of, I guess, fault of getting him involved with this.
He, as I recall here, for his first 6 or 8 meetings, he had a habit of spinning, but never touching anything and catching it. And I complimented him on it here at the October meeting, and then he got spun from behind and then took out about 4 cars. They've had a lot of work to do on this machine.
Yeah, but John works hard, and they got it back, and I think the car's 100%. And they are off a little bit today, but they're here to stay, and they're going to be strong competitors.
I'd imagine there'd be a twofold problem involved in that, Mike. Number one, trying to find your limit in a car like this when you're used to a different brand of racing, and also just trying to get the car set up right. And car set up, Rodney. Oh, and look at this. Fuller in all sorts of strife. Oh, it was nice save, though.
It was a brilliant save.
Fabulous save. Well done.
I think he tapped on, we might even get that on replay later, whether or not he tapped on the back of Fisher, or just got a little bit loose there. He's picked up the pace again, going down the back straight. That'll drop him a couple of spots, but I'll tell you what, he's still got a straight race car.
Yeah.
Yes, he did a fine job. If you lock them brakes up and hold them, usually you won't get into trouble. So, you know, he knew enough to save it and keep it out of trouble, and George Elliott did a fine job running on the outside of him.
Well, he's got away with that with a remarkably unscathed car. And he'll now, I guess, assess his tyres, Rodney, and get a feel. Let's take a look at that replay. He gets all out of shape. I'm not sure whether there was contact prior to all this happening. I think he just got in there and just went in too hot, turned her in, and was too loose in the backside, and away he went.
So Walter Giles, car number 91, brings out the yellow flag with about 15 laps remaining in this event. They'll do a number under yellow. Terry Fisher, car number 09, continues to lead. He's had a good race so far, Terry Fisher. The yellow flag may well help Jeff Fuller to come up a couple of spots in the pack. Pace car still on the circuit, 6 laps to go when they resume racing, which will be in about another 10 or 15 seconds. There's our wheel cam with Terry Byers. Pace car ready to drop beneath the white line at the moment, and Terry Fisher will lead them away. George Elliott showing in 2nd spot and Kim Jane in 3rd. Bad luck for Jeff Fuller. He's gone to the pits as they've taken the green, and that enables Terry Fisher to get out and running. Charlie O'Brien up there into 4th place at the moment as they head down into turn number 1. Fisher looking the goods at this stage from George Elliott. Elliott solidly into a 2nd place, and Kim Jane looking good for a top 3 finish here today. O'Brien switches back inside of Barry Blake to round up 4th. As they come off turn number 4, Kim Jane getting a little excited behind George Elliott across the line with 5 laps to go. And the young American driver, Terry Fisher, 09, threatened to win this race here last year. He's in a far more comfortable position today. Gap opens up on the inside of George Elliott. Kim Jane was ready to take it, just couldn't do it. I'll tell you what, Elliott's car's got plenty of power as he closes on Fisher going down the back straight. And O'Brien getting right on the tail of Kim Jane. This is a good finish coming up, folks. Turn number 4, 4 laps to go. Race leader Terry Fisher of the United States, and George Elliott of Sydney is hot after him. Kim Jane runs in 3rd, and Queensland's Charlie O'Brien in 4th. A great finish coming up. Elliott could carve his way to the front here, although Fisher doing it very comfortably. And Charlie O'Brien to the inside of Kim Jane. Can't do much about it. Leaves a little opening. 3 laps to go. Anyone's race. The American driver, Terry Fisher, with Elliott right behind him. Now, if Elliott has got anything left in the way of acceleration, and he can pull the inside coming on the back straight, he's sitting right in his draft now. Nose to tail. Down the back straight. Laps almost running out as O'Brien goes inside Kim Jane for 3rd. Now, whether George is just comfortable enough to finish 2nd, or he's got that killer instinct and a little bit sideways, very loose. 2 laps remaining as Charlie O'Brien, who's the big mover, has now worked his way up into 3rd place. He could make life unbearable for George Elliott with 1.5 laps to go. Fisher gets away by half a car length down the back straight, and I would think it could be Charlie O'Brien. If he can find a little inside edge here on George Elliott. Down to take the white flag. 1 to go in the drink drive. 300 for NASCARs here at Calder Park this afternoon. Turn 1. Elliott goes in very deep and will lose out of that. He gets it sideways and he connects with O'Brien as they go down the back straight. Kim Jane goes via the grass, trying to avoid contact with the wall.
He did it. He did it. Kim did a fine job.
Last turn, checkered flag coming out. They're going to wave this one off, and that will take the flag. It goes to Terry Fisher of the United States. Doug Taylor, maybe, in the number 24 car, will pick up 2nd, and who knows, maybe even Max Dumsney had enough there to pick up 3rd. Terry Byers limps in, and that is what you call one heck of a finish. Let's have a look at the action replay and see what happened. As you can see, they tangled on the back straight. George Elliott was in there, Charlie O'Brien. Now, about this time, Kim Jane has got very little to go, and he's gone for the grass. He misses contact there, and then somehow avoids contact with Charlie O'Brien, does he? And comes back out onto the...
Mike.
This is the better shot of it. Now, George Elliott got loose, ran into the side of Charlie O'Brien, and while this was happening, Kim Jane's looking for a spot to go and hide in. He gets down on the grass, goes between the 2 of them and the wall, wipes off the speed, and will probably finish up with a top 3 finish. Rodney, great for your company here today, and bad luck, commiserations, but we'll look forward to seeing you at the next round.
Thanks, Mike.
Well, a slightly disappointed Rodney Combs, who joined our commentary panel midway through the race after sitting on pole for the event. Terry Fisher, of course, went on to score his first major NASCAR win. He's returned to Calder Park Thunderdome this weekend, and he's not the happiest of individuals.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mike. It has been a very disappointing day for all the Australians, but another man that's very disappointed is American Terry Fisher. It's a long way to come to watch the rainfall, Terry.
Yeah, I could have done that at home. It's winter there.
You were here in December, you won the race, so I guess it was even a little bit more important today for you to back up again.
Yeah, I think we could have done pretty good, too. The car felt really good out there in practice, the 10 laps we did have, and we were going to put new tires on it and go see what we could do.
Not going to do a lot this afternoon, let me tell you, because officials have declared the track a little unsafe for racing, so I guess they can put them away and try and find a rain date.
Yeah, great disappointment, because I was really looking forward to this battle this afternoon for both the AUSCAR and the NASCAR, and it's a real tight point situation, as we mentioned before. So now we've got to find a spare date, and we've got so much motorsport coming up in the next few weeks, that's going to be hard. But of course, there's also the surfers race for the AUSCAR NASCAR boys, and they're back here again in May for more of the action.
We've got a lot of more motor racing action to come your way. After the break, we're going to look at touring cars and the big round at Sandown next weekend. Don't forget, the motor racing continues, hopefully in the dry, next weekend, round 2 of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship, plus the Shell Superbikes at Sandown Motor Raceway here in Melbourne. And what a race meeting that promises to be, and maybe the racing might be a little tighter and more of it than today.
Yes, absolutely. Let's pray for some dry weather, but even if it does rain, at least we can get some wets on, Mike, and we can go racing with the touring cars, and I think it'll be a fabulous round. The rule changes have certainly brought the cars together. Sandown's longer and faster, but very tough on brakes, so some other questions to be answered there. We'll be trying very hard with the Mobil 1 Commodores to get another result.
What about the Bimmers? Any chance at all at Sandown?
Well, I think so. I mean, what we haven't seen so far is what happens in this second heat. Of course, at Amaru Park last weekend, the second heat was washed out and the configuration of the race changed entirely. But you wait until the guys have to run that second heat on the same set of tyres. They'll be pretty hot and tired, and that's going to make for a very interesting result. And I think the BMW, despite all the crying, is still a very competitive car, but time will tell.
Well, the Bimmers, of course, trailed the Nissans and the Holdens throughout last year's Shell Australian Touring Car Championship. That was, of course, until they reached Lakeside, and that was home terrain for Tony Longhurst. Racing, then they explode into life. Look at Richardson right in behind, and Johnson out on the grass. Trying to muscle his way past the BMWs. Bow goes the inside. Johnson the outside. Heading down to the carousel for the first time. You'll find it's Nissan 1-2, Brock third. Then the two Johnson cars, followed by the BMW. A brilliant start by Glenn Seaton. And Alan Jones pushing up here on the inside. They're off to a great start. Now they head down towards the Dunlop Bridge.
Great start again from the Nissans, as you'd expect. The four-wheel drive of both Mark Scaife and Jim Richards. Explosive off the line. The two Nissans heading off into the distance in terms of the gap back to the rest of the two-wheel drive brigade. Brock's tagging along a little bit, and then we've got this fascinating scrap with the two Shell cars and the BMW splitting them. Good start from Mark Gibbs. There's Alan Grice subbing for Win Percy. Behind him, Colin Bond in the Caltex Century.
Well, outside of the leading Nissan pair, I think Dick Johnson and young Seaton probably got the best at the start. They've improved quite markedly off the grid, but no matter what they seem to do, the two Nissans still high ball along in front, running 1-2 at this stage, as they've done throughout so much of the season, with one exception, of course, and that was the win by Tony Longhurst. But can he turn the tables on them again here today? That remains to be seen.
Gary, it was interesting in the warm-up this morning, which is always a good indication of the performance of the cars in race trim, with a full load of fuel and appropriate tyre compounding. Scaife was quickest with a 52.78, which was virtually his practice and qualifying pace. Brock was second quickest with a 53.19. Then Jimmy Richards, followed by Tony Longhurst, as we take mobile race cam and watch Peter Brock, the 9-time Bathurst winner, very, very busy at work. Third position. By far the best performance from the mobile team in 1991. It had their woes coming to terms with the VN Commodore this year. They've had some problems getting the appropriate setup with the car. They've now got some new tyres. They've got the new spec engine in the car this weekend. Brock's a happy chappy.
In terms of handling, Neil, how much more difficult is the Commodore to manhandle around here than the Nissans?
Well, the Commodore's probably a little bit heavier to steer. And look at the BMW, it's so nimble. I'll come back to that. Let's concentrate on this battle here, Gary, with the two Sierras and the BMW getting stuck right into it. John Bow. They tested up here about 3 or 4 weeks ago with some new Dunlop tyres with the Shell cars, and they tested very effectively, but they don't seem to have been able to translate the speed this weekend. Bow being attacked at the moment. Look at the BMW, it's such a strong package. Tony Longhurst underneath, using all the road, using the true assets and advantages of the car. It's great under brakes, and as soon as he saw a gap, bang, straight through. And his teammate Alan Jones is going to be right in this battle as well as they come back onto the main straight.
Here's the scrap for third, Peter Perfect, 05 Mobile Commodore, and right behind him the aggressive Tony Longhurst, stalking after the two Nissans as they come down the front straight. And the bloke in the little yellow B&H 25 is going to keep Brocky busy. Izzy Watt straight down under brakes. Now Brocky will try and snitch him again on the inside. No chance on the exit of the turn because Longhurst is out right on the ribble. He is now advanced into third.
It's cost him plenty in tyre wear though now.
Yeah, he nipped up the front right a little bit, just heading in there as we take the speed cam shot. Interestingly, the gap from these two guys back to Alan Jones in the second B&H BMW is 9.6 seconds, and I think you'll find in the coming 5 to 10 laps that gap shrinks dramatically, and Peter Brock will come under threat from the other BM.
Getting pretty close at the front. Hope you're enjoying this 8th round of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship from Lakeside Raceway in Brisbane. Here's the order. Race leader, the youngster Mark Scaife, just in front. Clear of teammate Jimmy Richards, and right behind them and coming at them is Tony Longhurst in the Benson & Hedges BMW.
0.54 of a second is the split now between the leader and Tony Longhurst.
And the last time through, Scaife's lap was a 54.42, so they're actually losing more speed, where the BMW is maintaining its speed in the high 53s.
Well, Jim Richards, ham in the sandwich here, has got a real dilemma on his hands. He really wants to get past his teammate, and
look at this.
To do so.
There he goes, Richards straight through on the inside of Scaife and hangs him out to dry just a little. But then again, it's time for the attack of the 25 B&H.
No problem with Scaife's car.
Yep.
He left a lot of room through Hungary Corner, which surprised me, and I thought at the time that was a little strange because there are no team orders between the two Nissan drivers, so Scaife with a problem. That would account for the reason why he suddenly lost the ground that he'd made on Richards early in the event. So it becomes a 2-horse race at the front of the pack, and Longhurst is on the charge. Let's go down to the pits and see what's happening here with Fred Gibson and the team. Mark Osler down there, what can you see?
Well, Mark Scaife in some sort of tyre trouble. They're changing all 4 tyres. I was talking to Fred Gibson earlier in the day. They're running the same compound they ran here in round 4 in April, but the pace is up about half a second, so maybe this is just taking the toll on these tyres.
Oh, look at Longhurst here. He's in position for a pounce, goes round the outside, an amazing manoeuvre from Longhurst, and he takes the lead of round 8. Fabulous bit of driving from Longhurst.
Good, brave stuff around the outside. Crowd really appreciated that move from their local boy, Tony Longhurst.
Richards to the pits, is it? Yes, Richards in. Run out of rubber.
Unbelievable.
Mark Scaife, by the way, rejoined the race in 6th position, now moves up to 5th, with Richards coming in for a presumably tyre change.
One of the mobile cars has been in. Was that Brock?
Well, given the fact that Perkins was in earlier, I suspect so. Our man on the spot is Mark Osler.
Jim Richards, teammate to Mark Scaife, same problem. These tyres are blistering. You can't see it on camera, but I've got one of the cameras here, and it is absolutely shot to pieces. So Richards obviously has the same problem. Oh, they just look at the tyres that came off the front of the GTR. They are also completely gone. New tyres going on. They're having all sorts of problems with the wheel nuts, with the heat expansion that these things seem to go through. All 4 wheels back on now. Richards back off the jacks. Boy, this was unexpected this morning.
Off goes one of the Shell Sierras yet again, and it's got to be John Bauer, because we know that Johnson's in the pits. That's the 2nd time round for John today. It's been a tough weekend for the Shell team.
The car we spotted in the pits as Jim Richards went in was Peter Brock in 05. He's back out again in 9th place, and Jim Richards rejoined the race in 11th place.
Lap scorer's nightmare.
Yeah.
What I was going to say before things got a little hot was that Mark yesterday had a spin and damaged the 4 chosen tyres, and the stewards of the meeting and the race director heard an application from the Nissan team for him to use 4 new tyres, but from what I can understand, he wasn't actually issued with new tyres. At the recommendation of the other teams and the stewards of the meeting, they asked that the tyres be second-hand tyres of the equivalent wear from those, so it would suggest that Mark ran out of rubber a bit earlier. Let's have a look at a replay of the John Bowe incident in the carousel. Same spot that Grice went off, and he was involved in it with, I think, Colin Bond.
No, Bond, was it? I thought it might have been Mark Gibbs.
Cars look very similar. Looks like he ran up the inside of him and they just looped the car. Well,
a busy old race.
It certainly is. It's like a pack of cards. They've all blown over at the moment.
Tony's arm out the window again. Will he stop, or is he in strong enough shape to press on?
Onto the start, finishing straight here at Lakeside Raceway, coming up behind Terry Finnegan in the Foodtown Commodore. A great shot of speed as they whip along the front straight. Last lap board out now as Longhurst is going to do something he's been trying to do for a year or so, and that's win a biggie here at Lakeside Raceway, and particularly a round of the Touring Car Championship. The exit from the carousel now through the sweeper here down beneath Dunlop Bridge. I'll tell you, he seems to be driving the last lap as quickly as he drove the first few. To the left-hander at Hungary. Not too much traffic to have to worry about.
Can't wait to see the checkered flag. No one within Cooey. The nearest challenge from teammate Alan Jones, and that's not a challenge at all because he hasn't closed up any in the last several laps.
Certainly hasn't.
Tony lines it up for the checkered flag.
Coming out of the last corner, a great 1-2 here at Lakeside today for Team BMW. The Nissans back to 3rd and 4th, and Longhurst, the Queenslander, takes victory on home terrain. Second spot, of course, will go to Alan Jones, teammate in car number 20, the second of the Bimmers. Third goes to Jimmy Richards, 4th to Mark Scaife, and 5th to Glenn Seaton. A giant-killing performance by Tony Longhurst at his home track at Lakeside Raceway in Queensland. Can he do the same next weekend at Sandown? We'll have to wait 7 days to find out. We'll take a break and return to Calder Park. Well, that just about wraps up our coverage, or lack of it, live coverage from Calder Park Thunderdome this afternoon. A fairly disappointing day, but a lot to look forward to over the next couple of weeks.
Yes, absolutely. And apart from the ongoing wars with the touring cars, I think the superbikes will be a great highlight. We saw how good they were at Oran Park last year, so roll on the superbikes at Sandown and Simmons.
Well, we haven't got too long to wait. 7 days, a week from today, when we go to Sandown Park in Victoria, the superbikes, and round 2 of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship. We look forward to your company then.
This has been another 7 Sport production, the network of the 1992 Barcelona Olympics.